This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the website builders. As we begin this tournament, the biggest and proudest women's rugby has ever seen, I feel I must first clarify one thing. The term jammy bastards is gender neutral. This clash between Wales and Scotland was arguably the biggest game the two sides had played in their history, and one that set up their potential futures enormously, and it lived up to its billing. The tightest, tensest, most dramatic game of the tournament so far. A heartbreaker that kept heart rates pumping, pulsing, two Celtic nations wide awake at 6 AM, unable to look away and ready to burst. So, how did Wales pip Scotland at the death, and what can the two teams take out of the game with requirements to get out of the group now starting to take shape, yet two very tough games against New Zealand and Australia each to come? I said before this World Cup, if Wales can kick well, then they could be the surprise package of the entire tournament. And for 40 minutes, that looked to be the case. Over the Six Nations, Wales's kicking was lackluster. Fly half Eleanor Snowsill and centre Karen Lake were clearly identifying when to kick, but the kicks themselves were rarely anything. They were just kinda bleh. And then, in their two warm-up games, it felt Wales were doubling down, going, alright, okay, kicking isn't working, let's just run everything. Over those two games, Wales didn't kick from midfield at all suddenly, only smacking it to clear the ball from their own 22, or looking for the touchline from the odd penalty. But this wasn't because Wales had ruled out kicking. It was because they totally revamped their tactical kicking game and were holding it back so nobody knew they had it in their locker. Now, this opinion is completely subjective, right? But I've watched Eleanor Snowsill play more games for Wales women than any other player in my lifetime, and I don't think she's ever played better than she did on Sunday. This is the first passage of the game. Snowsill regathers Scotland's clearance and sends Kayleigh Powell into contact. With no gaps to attack, Powell runs towards her forwards to ensure the clean clear out, making sure they've definitely got the ball, and trusting this, Snowsill starts scanning. She glances across the far touchline, but instead of calling for the ball instantly, she waits for Wales to play another phase in field to give her a better angle, and then puts in this beautiful spiral. Because Wales's kicks are normally much shallower, Rowley has positioned herself in field, and the ball just sails over her shoulder, and then the touchline. Rowley had no idea Snowsill had this kind of kicking range in her. Pressure suddenly applied as quickly as Scottish surprise. The next time Wales have possession, Snowsill hears advantage called and instantly drops a kick far more akin to the attacking dink she's built a career on up until now. Rowley has to race in to regather it. And then, the third time Wales are in this zone, she hangs a quite brilliant bomb. Not only does it come down just outside the 22, it's placed just behind Rowley, meaning she has to run backwards in order to come forwards onto it. This whole hoo-ha distracts her, kind of gets her off, and she spills it in the air. Hannah Jones' film was on the floor, but in a parallel universe, this sets up brilliantly a chance for Wales to attack a disorganised defence. These are three incredibly different kicks, yet all of them near perfect in their execution. Well, two of them are near perfect in their execution. And all of them are targeting Chloe Rowley, one of Scotland's real star players, getting under her skin, trying to force her to second guess her positioning from the start of the game. However, the best bit is, the sudden added threat of Snowsill's kicking game allowed her to accentuate the things she's been doing so well for over a decade. They were better than ever on Sunday. Here, she drops off a pass to Harris and instantly starts eyeing up the next phase. Because the last few times she's kicked from this position, Malcolm is eyeing up the charge down and Smith is jogging up rather than applying pressure, half expecting to turn and cover a chip or something. So, when Snowsill opts to run, it comes as a shock. Smith steps in on her, she bites in instantly, worried about what she's going to do. All eyes already on Snowsill, but she slips it to Webb, who bursts right past Smith, who has all eyes just solely on Eleanor. Because of how Snowsill's been kicking, Rowley has positioned herself on the touchline, and it means she's not in position to make the tackle when the break is initially made, meaning Wales can charge right into the 22 before she catches up in order to make this unbelievable tackle on Fionn Lewis. This leaves one big question. Just how did she improve so drastically in such a short space of time? Many will point to new kicking coach and our Lord and Saviour Stephen Myler, but if we dig a little deeper than that, there's more answers. Where eventual hero of the hour, Kira Bevan, spoke of how Myler taught her to picture she was back home kicking with her dad in the local park, Snowsill's technique was different. For Snowsill was taught to imagine she was using Squarespace. Everyone's favourite easy-to-use website builder, Snowsill would keep herself calm before lining up a kick by imagining she was integrating an online store onto her site, or creating a mailing list, or starting a new blog post about the time she did a backheel chip over Sam Warburton whilst in fancy dress. Squarespace is just so easy to use, it calms Eleanor right down, and boom. Suddenly, flawless kicking out of nowhere. And if you want to work on your kicking too, or maybe design a website, that's another option as well, you can head to the link in the description and use the offer code SQUIDRUGBY to save you some money. Her kicking also created the position for both of Wales's tries. The first, finished by Alicia Butchers, is a perfect example of the things Cunningham prioritised in taking over this Welsh team. The maul and finishing from a few inches out, knowing that breaking a side down requires intelligence, opportunism, or both. Butchers here is digging for the ball to get it back for Fionn Lewis, the scrum half, when Jade Conkle-Roberts smashes into the ruck to disrupt it here. And so, noting Scotland now have no one guarding the space, Butchers reaches for the ball and just squeaks over. Contrast how Scotland defend prior to that try, regularly pressuring the Welsh ruck, sending players in, looking to stress them into errors, to when faced with the same situation in the second half. They now condense bodies in a far straighter, simpler line behind the ruck, really watching for a Butcher-style dart over the ruck, and they don't batter the breakdown at all, just focus on repelling the drives themselves. And it's eventually Conkle-Roberts who makes the difference. She does brilliantly to get beneath Georgia Evans, wrapping the ball up. Noticing this, Sarah Bonner, who was unbelievable, she had a phenomenal game, deliberately rolls Evans over the try line, meaning, under the, still, for me anyway, new laws, it goes from a Wales ball to held up and hence a goal line dropout, essentially a turnover for Scotland. This was a game-saving intervention by Conkle-Roberts and Bonner, and yet it was really just an undercard to how sensationally well the Scotland second row played. If you count that subtle roll over the gain line as a turnover, and that puts Bonner at a competition-leading 5 turnovers on Sunday from a second row. Her technique to do this is exceptional. Too tall for the kind of traditional bend-over method, she instead approaches low, some way out from the ruck with her feet far away, for straight back, allowing her to get in over the ball cleanly, and then slides upwards, kind of locking her weight onto the ball. And considering Australia was second only to the USA for turnovers conceded this weekend, she could be a vital weapon if Scotland are to spring an upset against the Wallaroos next weekend. She's also a key part of Scotland's first score, starting with the line-out take. Wales throw up Natalia John, more so they can kind of throw her into the Scottish side of the maul than to steal the ball. They want to disrupt it. It's a trick they successfully pull. Here, John turning her backside into the Scottish side and disrupting their drive nicely. However, Bonner comes down so cleanly it prevents John disrupting anything at all. She's just kind of thrown off to the side, and Scotland start to wheel her away, essentially applying the weight of 8 women onto just Alicia Butchers, who frankly does a pretty remarkable job of slowing it down on her own before Georgia Evans can come in and finish it off, but Scotland break away, and Conkle-Roberts does a brilliant job here. She drives Butchers upwards, meaning Skeldon can sneak under her and over the line. It's payback for the sneaky score down the other end. However, Scotland's search of a second score took, should we say, quite a lot more toil. Now, this was almost as fascinating a period to watch second time round as it was horrible as a Wales fan to live through live, because the perspective kind of flips. Watching live, the obvious point is Wales showed very, very poor discipline. But watching under a really big microscope, which I have, well, I actually think they kind of played a lot of it quite smartly. Wales spend 16 and a half consecutive minutes in or just next to their own 22. This counts as the 22, it's pretty much there. And in that time, they give away 7 penalties, which is the same number Scotland conceded across the full game. The first is this weird anomaly by Ciara Bevan, who gets the feed wrong, tries to bat the ball back into the tunnel. It's a split-second instinct thing that will hopefully teach her to never feed the bloody ball straight again. What do you think this is? The 80s, nobody feeds the ball straight, Ciara. The second penalty is also split-second by Bevan. With Wales marching Scotland backwards, Bevan makes a great decision to fly in and pressure Conkle-Roberts, something which prevents Scotland launching an attack, and means Callender, who was exceptional all game, phenomenal, top tackler, absolutely brilliant, almost wins the turnover, and even when Scotland do secure it, it spills out the ruck moments later. Bevan is about a second too early in a tackle on Conkle, but it's such an important second that it was probably worth the risk of hoping the referee wouldn't pick up on it. At this point, the referee calls over Wales captain Hannah Jones, who is expecting a warning, until the ref also welcomes over Scotland captain Rachel Malcolm, and she tells them not to have any Molly Scuffle McCabe's after the whistle, and suddenly Jones knows they've got at least 2 more penalties in them before they see yellow. One for the warning and the other for the offence itself. So when this happens, Jones herself shoots offside. And it's frankly a really great penalty to give away, because I don't think Jones is dropping Prop Belial before the try line, and being offside allows her to initiate contact with Belial early enough that 3 teammates can get in support before she reaches the line, meaning this isn't a try. Wales then holds Scotland up, and from the penalty that comes, Scotland set them all exactly the same as Skeldon's try in the first half. But just as they set to wheel it, Hope shoots in to kill her namesake of a try. The warning does eventually now come, and after the resulting line out of a penalty, Wales know this is their last shot, and so they now finally start to look squeaky clean, because for the first time in the passage, they actually have to. It actually matters if they don't give away a penalty to stop a try here. And so, Natalia John does this. It takes a bit longer than sacking a maul, but brings it to ground just an inch short, and Scotland knock it on, trying to make up those final few centimetres, granting Wales a scrum. Now, if this ball is fed wonkily by Bevan into her own side rather than straight, which no one has ever been penalised for in like 30 years, or does anything but bounce off Carys Phillips' foot, Wales can clear this into touch, having survived the period. As it is, however, something really weird happens, even after the ball ricochets onto the Scottish side. Hope is in the process of destroying Belial, but Wright, on the other side, eats Hale alive. It's like a demolition, and it wheels the scrum completely. She folds, Hale is penalised, but as Scotland set, the referee just stands still. She's forgotten she was going to give a card. It's not until Rachel Malcolm reminds her, very politely, that the warning was given, that the yellow card comes. Honestly, when it comes to talking to referees, Rachel Malcolm might even surpass Sam Warburton and Richie McCaw as the best you'll ever see. She just gives her a subtle nudge after the aggressive playing of her strings Wales have been doing the last 15 minutes. And with a prop in the bin, Wales opt to eject wing Lisa Neumann, meaning Jazz Joyce comes over to this side, probably just to have a chat with her fiancé, and hence Wales are a woman short on the far side. And so, Scotland do something inspired, and run the exact same strike play that struck them in the first half. This is how Wales did it. Fionn Lewis scoots in order to get the ball away from the range where the flankers can have any influence, and hits Hannah Jones, who careers into a namesake Smith but spins immediately. This is an increasing kind of trend in the game, using the offload as quick ball, and was huge in this whole opening round across the World Cup. Lisa Thompson steps in to challenge the breakdown, but the ball is already gone. Snowsill does something very similar, waiting for Rolly to tackle her before passing, meaning Webb only needs to draw Gaffney to put Powell over with 2 players left to spare. So, when Scotland desperately need a strike play to get them back in the game, they just steal the one that just undid them. Whilst the routine to get the flankers out of the way is different, Conker Roberts engages them far more directly, let's say, the idea is the same. It hinges on some Hannah-on-Hannah action, as Smith smashes into Webb and spins around to get Jones to try and shut her down in the same way Thompson did to her earlier. Nelson spins the ball, and Powell hedges her bets on Rowley going herself, which wouldn't be entirely out of character, but instead she times the pass perfectly to put Gaffney over in the corner. It's a really nicely constructed, really subtle yet simple try. Gaffney's second try, however, is even more delicious. With Jazz Joyce having received a card for her birthday, Wales are relying on Norkit to cover both wings just as Jazz did previously, so Scotland work phase by phase out towards the wing before sending their biggest back, Lisa Thompson, straight into Norkit's face to get her on the ground, make her make a tackle, get her out of the game. Wales play in field, and Mattinson just makes a little glance this side, It just keeps Webb and Norkit on the blind side. They know that Scotland are considering going there. Scotland's ball retention and ruck speed is amongst the best in the tournament, and this is a great solo clear out by Retty, meaning maximum numbers are on their feet. She's clearing out alone. With Webb and Norkit out of the picture, Hannah Jones is the only back in this range and forced to watch Conkle Roberts, and Bevan then, however, does a great job of double jobbing from Malcolm to Smith, but Lisa Thompson in the back runs a phenomenal dummy line. This is really, really great. She's screaming for the ball, desperate to just catch Wilkins' attention, because if Wilkins steps in here, Scotland can get outside her. Smith takes the slightest glance at Wilkins and fires a square pass to Belial, who does brilliantly, straightening up and waiting for Bevan to commit. However, Wilkins is more indecisive. She drifts, and Bartlett does exactly the right thing and gives Gaffney as much time as possible to work out how to finish it. It's her job, it's what she's in the team to do. Give her time to do it. She heads straight for the corner. Kaylee Powell does a brilliant job of flooding across to get in the way and makes a big hit, but Wilkins focuses on catching Gaffney, not racing to the corner flag, meaning that the quicker Gaffney doesn't need to worry about her at all. She isn't a consideration. Gaffney steps inside to hit Powell's weaker shoulder in order to dominate the contact, ball transferred into the arm away from Bevan to make sure she can't hold it up. It's a phenomenal technical finish, and it draws Scotland level with seconds left to play. This really plays to Scotland's other strength, which is their ability to sustain long periods of possession or defence. And I think it'll be really interesting to see against Australia next week, who resides solid as anything on the first few phases but get more stressed the longer and longer they have to keep on keeping you out. Could be really interesting. It's a must-win game for both teams now, knowing their shot at survival in this competition is now on the line. And that, of course, is down to a phenomenal 25-phase effort from the Welsh. This may not be the most instantly threatening attack you'll ever see, but it's one of the best managed. Wales play primarily off 10 all game, but suddenly switched to playing off 9 for this passage because it's lower risk. Scotland have taken a leaf from their goal line defence and spread and slowed. Cautious not to get caught offside, they slow their line speed. Careful not to get pinged for anything at the ruck, they scarcely contest now. Instead, trusting themselves to just last longer than Wales and hope they'll knock it on, they'll drop the ball, they'll make some kind of error. It's two teams with immense patience playing who blinks first, and the eventual penalty that decides it is so small. Hannah Smith fails to get back on side, and after a few close offside calls already, the referee gives the benefit of the doubt the other way. And then, well, no words need be said about Kira Bevan's kick. No words, some very loud noises at a very early time in the morning, but no words. What a... However, whilst Wales might have eventually secured the win, the fact they almost threw it away in the first place highlighted a few really big issues which this team will need to put right ahead of the next round. Restarts are a big problem that really needs fixing. Wales are losing almost every restart ball, as is feeding into the scrum, bizarrely, but that's the sort of thing that gets sorted in one training session. So the primary concern for Wales right now is how easily isolated this team were getting. However, this is with very good reason. Wales, in this game, adopted a 1-3-2-2 attacking shape. This is a structure that was pioneered by the Japan team at the last Men's World Cup, designed to get a lighter, smaller pack on the front foot, to get them going forward, to make them generate big carries. It's a shape that's hugely reliant on hard work rather than explosive power, which explains why we saw the likes of Alex Callender, one of the most fired up players on the planet, carrying so much more than she did in the Six Nations or the warm-ups, while Wales were playing a 1-3-3-1 pattern, a far safer, more old-fashioned attacking shape, which positions players like Callender in support to clear out the team's most powerful carriers, of which will maybe be 2 or 3. Instead now, we're seeing the more dynamic players being put in wider positions to try and hit holes or weak shoulders to try and play more expansively, instead of simply trucking it up or hogging the touchline as an edge forward in the previous shape. This is a prime example. In the shape they used in the Six Nations, Callender would be slotting in here next to Kelsey Jones, and Butchers would be the sole forward on this side, probably a bit further out. More there to clear out if one of these 3 backs took the ball into contact. However, in the new system, Butchers is in at first receiver, meaning she's got options out of back, and Callender is here supporting, acting as a kind of bridge between Butchers and the backs. And the extra number in attack is crucial in Malcolm holding off Butchers and in Gaffney and Rowley watching Joyce, Webb and Powell. This break is not made if Wales are still deploying the shape they played in the Six Nations. This is entirely down to their new structures that they were holding back for this game. However, whilst the Welsh attack did, thanks to this, look much sharper, Cunningham's gamble in holding this back and making sure no one can see them use it, they're not using it at all in previous games, meaning they could spring it as a surprise on Scotland, partially backfired on him. Wales found themselves frequently sticking to the new structures so stringently that they weren't breaking off to support a player who was about to be turned over in time, leading to this team getting isolated so much more often than they were in the Six Nations. These are odd, tiny little system errors that had huge ramifications. It's kind of telling that when the pressure was really on in that final play, Wales slipped back into the tried and tested 1-3-3-1 pattern that they played in the Six Nations and the warm-ups, instead of risking a return to the teething problems they'd experienced over this game. But it also shows this Welsh side's ability to problem solve and learn on the fly. It's that kind of resolve and tiny situational intelligence that saw them get to this win. And as a Welsh person, you've got to hope they continue to do this as they squeeze out those errors more and more before they play the Black Ferns this weekend, looking to stretch their jammy bastard reputation and create a brand new, proudest ever day for this team.
Who's faster, Ruby Tui or Jazz Joyce?
Oh, she'd say me. I'd say me, yeah. Go Jazz Joyce.